time I gotta put the comments. Tag some people. Hey, Megan.
Hi, Megan.
Tag, tag, tag. It was a nice day out today.
It was a beautiful day out today.
Got to love it.
Look forward to the next long walk we take together. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I learned a lot about you.
Did you?
Yeah. You have sweaty hands for a while.
Dude, you're gonna like have people like just fucking like tuning out instead of tuning in.
I know. His hands aren't sweaty.
They're not. They're really not.
They're really not.
They're really not. Really not. So, trying to tag some people.
That's what I'm doing.
Tag. That's what you're doing?
That's what I'm tagging people right now.
All right.
The reason I do it is I think it's a good way to encourage people to watch.
Is that why you do that?
That's why I do it.
That's brilliant.
Yeah. Because otherwise they might not even know. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of up to us.
Brilliant.
I'm full of good ideas.
Full of it.
Yes, sir.
Full of it.
I also like when we tag the same people.
I'm sure we have.
We do a lot.
Yeah. They just have to live with it.
I think they love it. Oh, man. There's around. There we go. There's some. Let's take my friend Forrest. There you go, Forrest.
Boom, boom, boom. All right, let's get some tags out there. Hey, Lisa. From rainy Arizona, Mom and Dad.
Really?
We got hammered yesterday. Hey, Terry. We got hammered. Terry. We got hammered pretty good yesterday with some hail.
Where? Here in Arizona?
Right here in Michigan.
Did we really?
Yeah.
I didn't hear the hail.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It was like spotty. We got just a little stuff, but a little north and south of us, they got hammered.
I like a good thunderstorm.
A good thunderstorm.
I love a good thunderstorm.
Yeah. So we're going to be tagging some people.
We're going to tag people, then we're going to have a show.
A show?
Mm-hmm.
What's it about?
I like addiction recovery.
All right, let's just go on the fly.
Yeah, we'll just come up with some. I don't think we should talk about any viruses though, because that's so last week.
Yeah, that's not good. All right, who are we missing? Katrina, hey, what's up? We're gonna roll with that game again. Just start tagging people.
Yeah, your job is to tag one person.
One person.
It's not your job, but you can help us deliver the message, right? That recovery is possible, and just other informative things of that sort. Help people escape for a minute, and the way you can do that is just by tagging one person. They don't have to be in recovery themselves. They just have to be your pal. Your amigo or amigas.
I like how you said that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's written down here. I actually read it. I composed it.
Yeah, it's like bilingual.
Yeah, I'm fluent in 4 or 5 different languages.
Mm-hmm.
English,
English.
Flint, Detroit, Lapeer, Mississippi.
Awesome.
Yep.
All right. While we're waiting, we got about 3 more minutes. Tag.
Tag.
Did you tag Georgia?
No.
I just did. So
you should. I was leaving that one up to you.
Joshua John. Hey, what's up, buddy?
Tight.
We're just playing a little game. Tag somebody.
Yeah. Tag anybody. Lots of bodies. I said one person, but don't feel that you're breaking a rule if you tag more than one.
Well, I think if you want to win the game, you tag more.
Well, it's a game.
Yeah.
We're giving prizes away.
Yes.
Yep. Whoever tags the most people.
Terry's trying to catch me.
Trying to catch you.
Yeah, she's trying to catch
tagging
me.
up a storm?
Yeah, she's tagging.
Terry's great. Thanks, Terry.
Tag.
Robin's daughter just showed up. Hi, Robin's daughter.
Hi, Robin's daughter. I didn't see Robin.
No, I tagged her, though.
Did you?
She's probably not awake yet. She doesn't normally wake up till about 9 p.m.
Tavi, what's up? Ashley,
Hi,
what's
Tavi.
up?
Hi, Ashley.
We're playing a game. Tag someone. Everybody has tagged someone. We got about a minute and a half.
This one actually,
it's going to be interesting.
I bet the vast majority of y'all have never heard of what we're about to talk about.
That's the majority.
Vast majority.
You want to throw an adjective in there? That's fine.
Majority wasn't strong enough.
Okay.
Vast. In fact, one vast is not enough. It's vastly insufficient.
Right. Hey, Lynn.
Hi, Lynn.
Hi, Lynn. We're playing tag somebody.
You're it.
You're it.
Tag somebody. I really need to make a list for this tagging game.
Yes, we do. Let's do it. Getting up here. You about ready? Or are you still tagging?
When you're I think I'm just gonna tag the whole show.
Just tag the whole show.
I'm gonna tag for a minute.
Yeah.
But I'm ready. I'm ready when you're ready. What's up, Rich?
What's up, Rich?
He called us a gentleman, which you're a gentleman, but
yeah,
I've never been called a gentleman before.
Well, it is plural.
Yeah.
It is plural.
Yeah. It must have been applied. Although he's laughing.
Yeah.
Maybe he didn't mean it. Hello, beautiful. Oh, thank you, Terry. I know you're talking to that.
I think she was talking to Lynn.
That's what it looks like. Well, she tagged Lynn on that comment.
Yeah.
I'm still going to put a heart there.
Quit trying to hang on, just hoard all the beautifuls, right?
Why not?
Save some for the rest of us.
All right.
There's
enough to go around, I guess.
All right, so we'll get started. We're right at 7 o'clock.
Here's the punctuality.
Yes. So today we're going to talk about body brokers. What are some other terms, Tim?
Body brokers. Let's see. Junkie hunter. It's a less flattering one.
Yeah. Rehab brokers.
Rehab broker was the other one I was thinking of. Yep.
So when people normally think of body brokers, they think of that gross stuff you see on TV where they're actually like brokering dead bodies, organs, that type of thing.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah. In this case, that's not it, right?
Nope.
So what this has to do with is taking advantage of people looking for help. And those people are usually in desperate situations. And a lot of times, we say when someone's willing to get help, any help is good help. But there's been instances where, and this is one of them, where that's not entirely accurate.
Correct.
So back when the Affordable Care Act was made law, it had 2 interesting clauses in it that actually made all this possible. And one of those was obviously people were able to have their kids on their insurance till they were 26.
Okay.
So they are eligible a lot of times for private insurance up until the age of 26. Then the other side of it was they included rehab as a medical treatment type thing. So the insurance companies were forced to pay for it. So those two things right there play a huge role in this whole process.
When did you say that happened?
With the Affordable Care Act. I believe it was 2014.
2014?
Yeah. So with those two issues in mind, we'll just roll forward with it. So what happens is these centers, they mainly go around to areas where the restrictions are not so strict. They'll take houses, they'll take trailers, and they'll register them as rehab centers or halfway houses, wherever they could get money from the insurance companies. So that's not even like legit to begin with. But at any rate, the loose restrictions and laws in the area, which happened to be Florida, and that's why Florida became like the rehab center of the world, basically, because everything was loose. People could just go in, open up, register it, and they're good to go. So that's why Florida was a hot spot. Now it's California. And meanwhile, what they're doing is they're going to find addicts on the street that are actively using, and they would talk to them to see if there was any interest at all in going and getting help. If that interest was there just in the least bit, that's when they would manipulate. And a lot of times these are people in recovery themselves, so they know how to work the game, right?
Sure.
They know the lingo, they know the areas, they know all that stuff. But it's also just other people as well. There's no tag on it. It's just all sorts of people. So, hey, Katrina. Hey, Randy. David made it. All right. So what they do is they get them and they bait them. They say, all right, do you have your insurance information? Do you have insurance is the first question. And now through the Affordable Care Act, not only is the private insurance paying for it, so is Medicaid. So all they need is that information. And then once they get that information, that's when they really manipulate them. Like, here's $200, here's a couple pack of smokes.
Right.
We'll get you help. And they take them to these centers, and that's where they get a kickback from the actual center. That kickback can range from $300 to $500 on for one person.
I've heard more.
Yeah,
I've heard it in thousands.
And that may be in other states, but originally in Florida, it was like $300 to $500, but Florida cracked down on it.
Okay.
So you're probably very accurate with that outside of Florida.
At any rate, it was a booming business, right? And I know that besides Florida, the state it was happening in the most was California. Mm-hmm. And there was even a switch from Florida to California because Florida started kind of catching up. You mentioned about like some of the kickbacks, right? Well, people who are trying to recruit these addicts into treatment centers were also like signing them up for insurance to qualify them in the first place.
If they were desperate.
Right. If they needed it. And then, but they would, when the referral rates were in the thousands, they were actually able to like sort of recruit these addicts with financial promises, right? They give them gift cards, or they pay certain bills for them. They do any number of things to sort of build a relationship with them. And bait them, I think it's really, I think there are a lot of people who probably got into that with some decent intentions, right? Because if you think about it, you're helping someone get into rehab, right? They're actually out there trying to help people get into rehab. The less scrupulous, I think, side of it comes from the treatment centers and the insurance companies, right? Like, they should know better, right? They should. The fact that they have this vested interest is different than a person. You can make a case that the body brokers themselves are doing social work, right? Because if you're recruiting someone into rehab, theoretically, what's the harm in that? Now, there are some things like I'll get into where the area kind of grays, and it makes it less ethical in some cases than others. But inherently, you can say that it's not necessarily bad. It sometimes comes down to individual motivation.
But it does become bad because that expanded because that wasn't enough, right? So they were actually going and recruiting people from other rehab centers. And they were actually flying them, like literally within hours, they'd be on a plane to another state just to get that money. So where it really gets crooked is you could take someone who's in rehab and want to get them to another center to make that money. And of course, now they need a dirty drop, or they won't be allowed they won't be accepted.
Right.
So that was the big money maker, was like they were taking a $30-$40 test kit from the pharmacy, and insurances, they were paying like up to $1,500 for each test. Now you test 5 times a week in rehab, and guess what? You got that's just one person.
Well, that's what it comes down to for the treatment centers, right? Is that there's not money in helping people get better and stay better, right? Because if you cure everybody, then you close your doors and say, oh, our work here is done. So if they're not run by people with like good morals and ethics, and every 501c3, every nonprofit can be structured very differently from the next. And the way you pay your CEOs and all that, just because it's a nonprofit doesn't mean somebody's not getting rich, right? So when you have people who, what some of these treatment centers would do is like have relationships with these halfway houses, where they knew when they would send these people back out into the community, they were destined to fail at this particular halfway.
They were actually given money to fail.
Well,
so
even worse.
And it's a good point that it depends on the actual rehab, right? You have the legit ones that have nothing but good intentions, right?
Sure.
They're not the ones that are billing in the extreme for acupuncture, like a dietary counseling, group yoga, stuff that these people weren't even doing. They weren't even taking part in that. So they were billing for that excessively. And we're talking about cases where they've busted just recently a handful, or probably a couple dozen. And the one had made over $58 million.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just
billing insurance for excessive services that weren't even being provided.
Well, the average stay for an addict is like the tens of thousands of dollars, what a treatment center can build an insurance company. And that's just like a basic number, right? That's even without probably, you see those like Malibu passages type place where the stays are in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. And those places I'm sure are billing for like Reiki and acupuncture and all those sorts of things.
If you would think that a high-end place would be actually following and having good intentions, because a lot of those are really religious based. You would hope that that's the case, but we're talking like they have these slum areas, like you wouldn't believe that would be where they're having. I mean, there's like these places are infested with bed bugs. They're just like terrible.
Oh yeah.
And so these people can't actually wait to get out of there. So when the next guy comes along and says, "Hey, I'll give you $200 to go to this great place over here," they're all for it, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. And Forrest asked, like, he kind of jumps to the heart of the matter here. He says he sees rehab being covered on insurance as a good thing, and I of course agree with that. I wouldn't have ever been able to go to rehab if it weren't. But what's the legislative solution, right?
And that's what they're working on now. They've cracked down on it in Florida quite a bit. That was one of the big things that's happened over probably the last 2 to 3 years, was they would have task force in place. They would just break these places down bit by bit. And they were able to, I mean, if you want to find a scam, follow the money, right? So that's kind of the easy way to do it. It's just getting those, they did make it a criminal offense to be paid to recruit somebody.
Okay.
Yeah, they did. That's one of the things they did with the laws. But as you like, how are we supposed to control this? And a lot of the other states are, the majority of the other states are playing catch up to this whole process now.
Right.
So you have Florida as the leader. They got hit first because they obviously could bait people with the great weather and all that good stuff. But
which is, I think, why California became
the next
go-to.
Yep.
And part of the answer, I think, for us would be that without like federal legislation, it's going to be a game of whack-a-mole.
Yeah.
Because as soon as California tightens its laws, some other warm weather state will see an opportunity. Because it's not the state; it'll be somebody in the state will see an opportunity in Texas to recruit people there. And until the Texas legislature is hip to what's going on, they're not going to start creating laws to prevent it because it's not a problem, and that takes an awful lot of foresight from a governmental body to troubleshoot like that. So I think like some kind of federal solution would be the only thing that would really work.
Yeah, that's the way it would have to be, and it would have to be incorporated in with the health insurance companies. They would have to actually care where they're putting their money and follow up on it. But yeah, it's a whole process where it started more or less just getting them off the streets in the rehab, getting a quick paycheck for $300 to $500, which is probably, like Tim said, probably a lot more now in other states. But then it went from getting them out of that rehab to the next, or getting them into a halfway house, and they would actually give them $200 and some heroin. Just so they could say, okay, you failed your drug test, you're going back to rehab, right? And the insurance will pay that. They knew that, and that was a loophole that they took advantage of.
I was surprised when I first went to rehab, and that was one of the first questions I kind of had was like, do I have to get this right this time? Seriously, because if I don't, are you guys going to say like, well, we gave you a shot, you got to wait a year now before you can come back? And at least the way it works around here is no, man.
No, anything under
Medicaid will keep sending you.
Yeah, and that was, well, any insurance, because that's what the Affordable Care Act put in place. And that was one of the two things we talked about at the beginning that kind of encouraged this whole process. There were good intentions, but unfortunately, people take advantage of others that are in a bad situation. So what happened from there is that steamrolled into sex trafficking. And they actually go to like NA groups, AA groups. We're talking like not just like drug addiction, we're talking alcohol, anything where they can get someone in a treatment. They're showing up to these groups. They're looking for people like sitting in the back, kind of keeping to themselves, show the body language, not wanting to be there. And then they just kind of nonchalant just say, how's it going? And then these people would half open up to them, and they'd see an opportunity. And that's when they would jump in, and where Tim said earlier, they might help them out, give them a ride somewhere, get them something to eat, give them a couple bucks. But yeah, it's crazy. They're taking full advantage of two different ends of the deal. You're taking advantage of the person going through addiction, and then you're taking advantage of the healthcare system, where that's the big money. But unfortunately they need someone to get that money.
Well, the victim, of course, is the suffering addicts, right? And to answer the question that it wasn't posed, but it's an obvious question: is this like a victimless crime, right? And so here's some reasons why no, it is not a victimless crime. When you're referring patients to the highest bidder, that doesn't like lend itself for a good fit between client and treatment.
Right.
So that's one example. You're not basing where you're sending this person on what they have to offer as much as who's willing to give you the biggest kickback. So that's a problem, right? And then spending priorities shift, because by paying these kickbacks to body brokers, there's less money for like other quality services like good counselors or post-treatment support.
Well, they found in a lot of these facilities that were given the kickbacks, there were no counselors. There was no acupuncture. The only thing there was drug testing, because that was where the big money was.
Sure.
So that was like easy pickings for law enforcement once they changed those laws. It's pretty simple there. You follow the money and you go here, and there's no services, right? There's no counselor. That's easy to uncover. But if there's no laws in place, you're really not going to be able to do anything about it. And that's where law enforcement was, kind of in a pinch with that whole thing. They knew what was going on. Everybody knew what was going on. and they could do nothing about it because there were no laws saying it's illegal. But yeah, that turns into the sex trafficking. And so it was all kind of networked together. And really it boils down to, there's instances where people were going to 5 or 6 different rehab centers within a year to a year and a half. And you're talking like close to 200 grand in expenses from the insurance companies, and nobody's catching on to this, right? They're in 5 different treatment centers, maybe in 2-3 different states, and nobody's even like batting an eye at it.
Yeah. I mean, Terry mentioned someone she knows who's been to rehab 20 times. And she says he goes in, and once he gets out, he gets paid by someone to go on a meth run. And once the money is gone, insurance through Ford apparently pays for another rehab stay. And she says it's just like a game, just an endless game for him.
And
the fact that these people are basically paying, incentivizing addicts to continue to struggle with what can be a deadly disease,
right,
is just unconscionable. It's baffling that whatever legislation gets enacted, the perpetrators should be subjected to some pretty stiff penalties for that.
Well, it's basically human trafficking when you look at it. It's what it boils down to, because you're not like, you're offering someone treatment, but under false pretenses, right?
Right.
There's, when you take them in there and you get your paycheck, your quick, kickback from the rehab center, and then right, that they're not going to make it because it's set up for them not to make it. There's more money if they don't. Hence how we titled this was, there's more money in relapse than there is in recovery. But yeah, that whole system like expanded as they seen the money. So that's when they started separating the detox from the actual rehab, because there was actually more money in that, right? Then they could do more doctor calls. They could, more tests, more blood work, that type of thing. And they can add charges on top of that. So it was another cash cow for them. So they break these steps of rehab down and separate them. So now you're going to one facility for detox. They're making the money. Then you're going to rehab, and then they were just once that started, they kick them right back, right? Like here's some heroin. Well, you got a 5-minute break out front, right? And then they come back in, they send them back to detox, and then the whole process starts right over, right? And it's the sad part is the victim it's not the insurance companies, it's not the taxpayer, it's the addict.
Oh, for sure. I mean, people are dying because of this practice.
Yeah, there's been a lot of people that have died, especially the younger kids, because those are the ones they go after, they target, because they're usually on their parents' insurance. So private insurance will pay a lot more than Medicaid. So those are the high target people, is up to the age of 26 with private insurance.
Yeah, that makes sense. And, I've read at least one off the top article comes to mind where there's a parent who figured out after the fact what was going on and straight up says, this practice killed my son. I think it was on NBC News, but or CBS, I guess it was in Ohio. And he died in between, like he was going from rehab in Florida to California. He already knew, like, he knew what he was doing. Like,
that's the one where his dad got the text messages.
Yeah.
And he was like, we'll call it the recruiter, was like, hey, homie, what's up? And he's like, oh, not much. And he's like, how you doing? He's like, same old. And then he's like, I can get you over here, much better place, and you'll get $200 when you land. Yep. And
2 packs of smokes a day, haircut, and gym.
Yep. And he bit on it, and he ended up dying.
Right, because so many people who struggle with addiction, we talk about this all the time. They're not ready. They're not ready to quit, and that's when shit is falling all down around them. When the world's caving in on them, they're still not ready. Despite, there's so many negative consequences that I went through, and I still wasn't ready. If I had somebody saying, here's money, here's cigarettes, here's everything you could ever dream of.
Well, $200 to someone who doesn't have anything.
Oh, you can get high at least for a day,
right?
Not two, and that's as far as we tend to look ahead.
Yeah, and that's where they were baiting these people in, and a lot of lives were lost. You have a lot of the females ended up in the sex trafficking ring, and that was that was also like they would actually be even in the facility but registered, and then they'd move them to a so-called halfway house, and that's where the sex trafficking happened, right?
Right.
And it's just a vicious circle, and they kept expanding that circle as they seen the money possibilities. So
yeah, the dad, just to finish that story, said basically that a body broker, to use an indelicate word, is a pimp, and that's
what they are. They're
fair
pimp
characterization.
Yeah, and like we said before, Florida was the hot spot for this. Florida was the rehab central of the world, and the reason being was all these other little ones were popping up in trailers and in neighborhoods, and they found vacant houses that were registered, and the laws and the regulations for zoning were so loose they took full advantage of it. So that's where Florida figured it out, started cracking down on it, and it was a long process, but they've got it somewhat down to where it's not insane like it was. But that pushed everybody out to the next state. California became the next big one. Now they're pretty much going, it's everywhere. So all these other states are playing catch up on the legislative part of it. And until that happens, this is something that we have to be aware of, because it can happen real quick, and they're slick. I mean, they are slick.
Yeah, Forrest, I'm with you. Forrest says he'd love to hear someone that's been a victim of this. That's the thing, like being here in Michigan, I know that most of us around here weren't really familiar with it, So
Right.
like we really, I think, obviously there are people who are ahead of us on this curve, but I would love to too. I'd love to hear it as well. It's such a discouraging thing to hear about anybody who's looking for help in any way to be taken advantage of and just seen as an opportunity to bank in. And again, I know like not everybody involved is necessarily has that motive. I'm sure there are people who had good intentions and were trying to help people get clean. I don't have any doubt about that whatsoever. But there's obviously like a nefarious component to this, and I'm with you, man. I would love to hear somebody who feels like they were the victim of this practice.
Yeah, that would definitely be interesting, because it would make sense after the fact, but not during. Obviously, during, we all know that relapse is part of the process. So to them, someone walking up in rehab saying, "Here's a hit," right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Totally. Yeah. I mean,
so that makes it very difficult. And then where you really come into a problem is where these hot spots are, where this is going on. You have the people that are trying to do the legit thing. They're really out there to help people. They want to get people into rehab for the right reasons.
Right.
They know where the right rehab centers are that are doing it for the right reasons.
Right. And something I've always said is if I don't take my experiences and use them, if I take them and I use them to grow for myself and my family, that's good. That's what life's about. But if I use them and really try to help other people with them, then they really truly have value, right? So when those of us who are in recovery have experience with this lifestyle, so many of us want to help. So many of us are just looking for ways to help somebody else find what we found.
Right.
And, in practice, in theory, I could see if somebody said to me, we want you to just walk around Detroit and try to find people who are struggling with addiction and get them into recovery, that would sound like a dream job to me. I would love to do that.
Because you do it for the right intention.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. Like, it's really hard to like throw a blanket over. The problem really I see comes with the treatment center insurance company side of it more than anything else, right? Like, I think that the body broker or junkie hunter name can be potentially misapplied to some people, because I think there's surely people who are thinking doing a good thing, right? They're helping people.
But
to
they
get
know when
treatment.
they take them into certain centers and they're saying, here, next time you bring me one, there's a little something for you. You know there's a problem. And at that point, if you continue to go to that one, and I guess the best recommendation that I can give is if you know a family member is struggling or a friend, and they get put into a rehab center all of a sudden unexpectedly, or just in general, do some checking, do some fact checking. Most of the legit ones are going to be online. You're going to be able to Google them and see what they're about, see what people work for them, and people will, if they've been done wrong, they're going. I mean, let's face it, social media allows you to voice your opinion.
You know what would be? Yeah, I don't know if something like this exists, but there really should be. And if there is something like this, we need to know about it. There should be some kind of like central, like a Yelp review for rehabs, for treatment centers.
A check your shit.
Yeah, pretty much,
really?
right?
No,
yeah, like a Yelp review for rehabs. So
right.
like that way people can really have an idea. And so then there's some kind of accountability on the rehab centers themselves. Sure, I don't know if there is.
Probably not, but
I do have Google.
Google that because I'm really curious. I mean, they have it, like you said, for Yelp and whatnot. But that's how you can do yourself a favor and a loved one or a friend, is make sure that when they make that call and say, hey, I'm in rehab, or I'm going to rehab, or I plan on going to rehab, check out that facility, right? You are probably in the right state of mind to do that. You have to be aware of everything going on. And where it really gets fishy is if they're going from one rehab to another, right? That's where that might be a red flag, to do some more checking, because something's not on the up and up.
There's Kristen made a comment, no relapse doesn't have to be a part of the process. And when people go into rehab and relapse, then go right back, something is definitely wrong. I'm not sure exactly what was said. But yeah, I mean, like, it's, I think, often said that relapse is part of recovery. It doesn't necessarily have to be, right? So I definitely think that was a point worth making, Kristen. I do think that there's a certain likelihood for a lot of people when they first come into recovery that they don't get it the first time. I know I didn't. And so part of the reason I think it's also important to mention that is so that people don't give up on themselves, or the loved ones of addicts who are in recovery and struggling with relapse don't give up on them. It doesn't have to be a part of it, but it is, I would say, pretty common.
It's very common, but we're talking like if someone's going to rehab and they get out and they relapse, or they relapse in rehab, because maybe there's a ton of different reasons. But what we're talking about is when someone baits them, like they're in rehab.
Oh yeah,
and they're giving them, they're giving them, right. And that's,
and I never. There's no way. When I first started, the first time I went to rehab was like 2011, and I was in for 2 weeks. The first like 11 days, I was just sure that I wanted to stay clean. But the last 2, all I did was think about what angle I was going to shoot so I could get high as quickly as possible.
Right.
That was with me just using my own addict ingenuity.
Right.
Knowing that there would be potentially someone on the outside that were just ready to, and not a dealer per se. I mean, we all know they're out there, but like somebody that's working in the industry and is working against you,
going out of their way to make you fail.
Yeah, it's
like that is, yeah, unbelievable that people could walk around and look in the mirror after that. But it's really a big thing, and it's until they make some changes in the laws, and like we said, all these states they're going to have to get on board, right? And I think that's what, she's like, that's what she meant, Kristen. Yeah.
Well, Kristen knows. Kristen's been in the program for a while, so Kristen has a really strong recovery, and and I appreciate when anybody out there kind of holds us accountable for different ideas like that, because I know I misspeak a lot, and I'd rather have you guys contribute and further the conversation in the way you just did, Kristen. So thank you very much.
Yeah, Forrest, that would be Yeah, we could get an app and put an app out there. We've had quite a few good ideas on the apps and information.
We have app ideas.
Yeah, because that you're right, Forrest. That's a loophole that needs to be plugged, and I think an app would be the best, where you could quick download and boom.
Yeah, and they're a quick search, and I couldn't get into it real deep. There's places. There might be some sites where you can get feedback on rehabs, but it's pretty clear to me that there's not like a well-known comprehensive one that's just like the go-to, like a Carfax or something like that, right? Like we have certain things like Kleenex that become synonymous with tissue, even though there's other tissue brands. And I think to have that one reputable source, and maybe it should be governmental, maybe like it should just be.
I think they need to do it like a corrections facility where they're inspected on a regular basis. Okay, multiple facets, right? There's ways for them to make complaints, and if those ways are blocked, then there's problems, right? And those need to be controlled. So you're right. It needs to be like established by the government and work through down the channels, from detox to rehab to halfway houses.
Just whatever makes it the most credible, and whatever, hey Sarah, whatever else gets the word out there, right? Because we could make the app right now and it could be crazy effective and wonderful, but if people don't know about it, then it goes underutilized. That's half the problem. So yeah, it's definitely something we gotta all put our law and disorder community mind together on and figure out how we're gonna further this. 6 feet. I'm sorry, Joe. I forgot. I forgot. Sometimes I keep thinking it's 5. It's 6 feet.
Right. So state and government fund. That is exactly right, Kristen. If they're feeding government money into it, you would think that it would be mandated.
Responsibility.
Yes. Yeah. But a lot of times, unfortunately, that's the way it goes. That's why you see all the time in the news where there's actual criminal rings made up of doctors that are scamming Medicaid.
Right.
For millions, if not billions, it's like the government isn't like built to control what they pay for. It's sad, but the reality of it is, how do you pay for something like that?
Yeah.
So that's where they're kind of relying on the state level to jump in, and just all they have to do is create those laws. Then law enforcement can step in. When there's no laws, law enforcement, what are they going to do? Like say, can I see your pockets because you just dropped someone off at rehab, check for money or gift cards or whatever? They can't do that.
It's not practical.
But if there's a law and they know, because word spreads, right? That's when you can do something about it. And it's going to be interesting to see that how quickly some of these other states catch up to some of the laws in Florida, California, that they're going to have to do some changing right now. And it's going to be a process. It's definitely going to have to happen though, because lives are being lost, and for the wrong reasons. People are recruiting people and just using them. They're pawns. And that's where that whole body broker thing comes into play. And not a good situation at all.
Not at all. And I want to ask our audience real quick before I forget, if you do any research on this topic, whether it's on the idea of legislation from a state to state level or a federal level, or the idea of like reviews for rehabs, either way, if you come across anything good, please send us a link. Let us see what you're seeing, and we'll try to make something happen.
Well, there is, I highly recommend, it's a documentary on Netflix. It's that one that I told you about probably a couple weeks ago. American Relapse.
Hulu.
That's right. Hulu.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a really good documentary.
Yeah, you have to excuse me during this whole stay-at-home quarantine stuff. I use all of them, right?
Yeah.
And I don't watch TV, but yeah, on Hulu, look it up. It's called American Relapse.
Yep.
It's a fantastic insight to what is going on or was going on in Florida. I'm sure it still is, but they've managed to reduce the common factor of it happening, but it's still out there. Look that up. Check that documentary out. How many I think it's one season or.
Well, no, here. Okay, so there's a documentary that really focuses on two people in particular who are out there trying to help addicts get treatment. Actually, one I think is a dude from Detroit, but and then those two are also now the stars, I guess, of a TV show on Vice called Dope Sick Nation,
Right.
and that has a season to it. I've seen parts of that.
Yeah.
That is a pretty good show too, but the only thing I've seen in entirety is American Relapse. And if you don't have Hulu, just call Joe. He'll put it on his credit card. He'll hook you up.
Right,
So,
whatever. So yeah, that gives you, like, we can talk about it, explain it. That documentary is going to give you the street. It's like the street view of it, like what's actually going on. They did a fantastic job with that. Let me put this right up here. Boom. There you go. Kristen's got it. Hulu, American Relapse.
and it really, and just to be clear, like the documentary itself isn't about like body brokering per se. That's not really what like the story is. It's a part of the story, though.
Right.
Um,
But it does give you a good.
it's kind of an introduction into that world of.
Right.
And there's no like villain in the movie or anything like that. They're not. You don't see like an insurance company or a body broker or anybody who's like put on blast that is called into question. It's just it's acknowledged in the movie as something that's going on
From people who are doing it for the right reasons.
Right. Some people who are like frustrated, I think, because it's giving them a bad name, right? So they're out there trying to help people get into treatment for the right reasons, but they're working against the reputation that these other people have who are just about the money.
Right. And it's with any profession you deal with. It's with law enforcement. You got good cops, you got bad cops. You go to the hospital, you got good doctors, bad doctors. You got, every profession deals with that.
Of course. Yeah.
And unfortunately, this is like just like expanded to the point where they had to change the laws. And what's key on this whole thing is they're looking for the private insurance. So your main targets are going to be 26 and below on mom and dad's insurance. Then if that doesn't come up in the radar, then they'll go for the Medicaid. Because Medicaid pays substantially less than private insurance in a lot of different cases. That's where those drug tests are coming in. The cost of those, it's a little more flexible with private insurance than it is Medicaid. So that was the key on that one. The next thing that we mentioned at the very beginning was the fact that they incorporated rehab as part of a medical treatment, forcing insurance companies to pay for it. So that's where that whole change came into place, opened the door for scamming. And when you want to find the root of a scam, you just follow the money. I mean,
usually the case.
Yeah. I mean, they're not going to scam you for a Snickers bar. But it's sad. Lives are being lost. People are thrown actually from where they're at in a bad spot into a deeper hole with the whole sex trafficking that is entailed, the constant, relapsing that they're actually almost forcing upon you. If you're in rehab, you're still in a bad spot. You may be making progress, but you're still in a bad spot.
Right.
And there's a lot of unknowns, so they're very vulnerable.
Yeah.
And they're just extorting that to the point where it's ruining lives.
Jessica asked, is this the show that Vice aired? The show that Vice aired is called Dope Sick Nation, and it's based on a couple of the people that are in the American Relapse documentary. It surrounds the people that are like, they're down in Florida and they're trying to help people get into recovery. They're recovering addicts themselves. They're younger people. They seem like they have good motivations for doing what they're doing, but it just calls into question the whole practice. And frankly, they call it into question to an extent. It's not anything that they're hiding from. But yeah, so yes and no, Jessica's the answer to that.
So Forrest, yes. We actually have done quite a few live shows on that topic. If you go to our Facebook page, look back probably starting about 2 to 3 weeks ago. We started with that as one of our main topics, and yeah, that was a long question, so it's covering the two ugly guys up, which we're cool with.
Thank goodness.
Yeah. But yeah, you can scroll back and catch those. Pretty interesting, actually.
Yeah, Forrest, I think to piggyback on what Joe just said, a lot of people who are familiar with addiction and recovery are familiar with that TED Talk where the gentleman, I think it's like Johann something, he says addiction is a disease of isolation. And I think that's what we realized real quick with this crisis is in the 12-step community, recovery community, how many people really were missing those meetings. You hear things all the time too with people saying an addict alone is in bad company, right? I know you've probably heard a lot of these things before. So it's definitely tricky, and I think especially for those who are just getting into recovery. I felt like pretty solid at the time, the place I was in my recovery when this happened. But had it happened a year ago, it would have been a lot harder for me, and it is worrisome. One thing I'll say though, Forrest, is that like you see in a lot of segments of society right now, is people are pulling together. I've seen some really amazing things happen. Zoom meetings are just blowing up, so people are meeting online. There's all these other like little Facebook pages and groups that have sprung up where people are checking in with one another. So there is a lot of good that's coming from it.
Yeah, and there's also like crazy guys like this that just randomly go live and walk through the drive-through at McDonald's.
That's right.
But we need to laugh, we need to have fun, but most of all, we need to check on each other. But yeah, it's a bad spot to be in for everyone, especially when someone in recovery is isolated. The groups are not there. Therapy's not there. It's all shut down, and it's a depressing thing to know that you can't really leave your house. I mean,
yeah.
And that's where we got into that in the previous episodes where we talk about, pick up a new hobby, do something nice for somebody. It's all there. So we're gonna move on to Terry. Yeah. So speaking of the online meetings, throw a like button up there if you would be interested in a Zoom meeting with Law and Disorder. Not so much a 12-step NA meeting, but more of
a more interactive experience.
Yeah,
with
where you guys can speak
and disorder.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, and then that way you guys could kind of help us maybe come up with topics for future shows or anything. It's just really your opportunity to take some ownership over the podcast and help guide us so that we can get our message out to a wider audience. And
it would just be more or less a roundtable for everybody just to kind of vent, talk about what's going on. It may seem like small things, but at the end of the day, when you're sitting there and you're on your camera and you see everybody else, it is a little different.
Yeah.
We did one, about a week and a half ago? Maybe a week and a half.
It was a huge Zoom meeting. The one you and I did?
Yeah, that was huge. There was 4 people there, right? So, and Tim and I we don't count as,
yeah. And we were 2 of them.
We were 2 of them. But
we'll try again.
It was still a good time. We talked about a lot of different things, from just what's going on to whatever. And then we went right back to another topic. And it's a good thing. It's fun to do.
And by the way, real quick, Terry, I just want to thank you for your honesty. Talking about relapse like that, it's not an easy thing to do. So
yeah, Katrina was there.
Whenever we kind of open up and share our stories, whether they be with relapse or whatever little nuance of addiction and recovery, our struggle, it makes it so that the next person can do it a little bit more easily. I think a secret shared is a secret halved. That one's never made a ton of sense to me necessarily, but the concept does, if not the mathematics. It really can be damaging to us addicts to have these secrets. So you're just empowering somebody else to open up and share their struggle with this pandemic right now.
Yeah. So if anybody's interested, throw the like button up, and what we'll do is we will put it out there on a post for their login information. We have
even maybe suggested days
Yeah,
would be good.
I'll throw up a post once we get done here. You guys drop in what's a convenient time. We'll try to pick something that works for everybody. Obviously, that's not going to happen, but you guys are supposed to be home anyway.
Right.
Supposed to be home washing your hands.
Right. 6 feet away from Joe.
Yeah, and you don't have to be necessarily in recovery. We have a lot of people that offer a lot of resources, a lot of support. We have Jessica, we have Lynn, Georgia. I'm sure she'll be all over it. But yeah, a whole different ballgame. We can interact with each other, get some stuff off our chest. The last one I was ragging on Tim about his hair, but I won't be able to do that this time because I'm the one that needs a haircut.
Yeah, I know. You know what? I shaved this old noggin for this show, and because of your harassment and persecution of my hairline. So I want to thank you for that, Joe. I'm all aerodynamic now.
He is.
I can definitely run faster when my hair's shorter.
So 2 to 8. We got 2 to 8. I'll drop it. I'll drop something out in the comment. I'll do a post, and then we'll get it set up, and that's where you'll find the login information for Zoom. That way, I don't have to be
so
close to this guy who probably didn't wash his hands.
I don't ever. My motto is, "Why wash your hands when you can lick your fingers?" I don't know why anybody washes their hands.
And Anne's there. Anne's cool. Yeah, and she's dealt with it a lot. So she'll be there. She's pretty cool.
It'll be fun.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Be a good thing. It'll be.
We don't have to do it on a serious note. We can mix it up. Have some fun.
Absolutely. We all need a little bit more fun and a little bit more community right now.
And we need to be checking. It's really ironic, right? You're not supposed to be around anybody, right? But yet we all have to be there for each other. So it's a kind of an odd.
And I think there's a balance between like being responsible and limiting our exposure to this disease and the spread of it, but also we have to take care of our own mental health and everything else too, right? So there's I think a responsible balance to be had. You can't,
right?
I think, close yourself off from the world entirely. If you can, great, but it's harder for some than others. And I think we should be careful who we judge. There's a story going around recently about a young man who actually took his own life because he was struggling with mental health issues, and this particular thing set him off. So I don't think the importance of community at this time can be overestimated.
Right. And just lick your hands, you will be fine.
This is what I'm saying. It's antibodies. My fingers are usually covered with antibodies. That's why.
Oh, hang on. I didn't see you, Nicole. How are you doing?
Hi, Nicole.
Yeah, Nicole is going to be one of our future guests. We got to work that out, Nicole. So get at me. We can do it remotely. You just patch right in and we'll go with it. She's got a very interesting story. Her and I actually go way back. Probably 10, 12 years.
That is way back.
That's way back.
We go back like 5 months.
Yeah.
10, 12 years.
Which, by the way, yeah.
Woo!
5 months, a long time with
Poor Nicole.
Imagine that. No, but yeah, on that note, Tim was 8 months.
Yeah.
Our last, it was yesterday, right?
April 6th.
April 6th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
April 6th would be mark 8 months since I had no more kratom in my system. And April 30th is another one coming up for me because that'll be a year without Suboxone, which is straight narcotic that I was prescribed for a while. I've cleared a year when it comes to like street drugs. I would have cleared that at the beginning of January. But yeah, these little milestones, man, they're fun to check off. I feel good about it. Like 8 months without any kind of opiate whatsoever, any kind of cocaine, LSD, marijuana.
Then you're talking what?
Alcohol.
15 years of running.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
like longer, like 20 plus years. Yeah. So,
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
he knows that he can't show up over here
right.
and get his
Yeah.
coffee.
Yeah, I get arrested.
Yeah,
Like that.
that ain't gonna work.
No.
But no, we are looking forward to that Zoom meeting. We'll post it. I think we're good, right? You're open, right? I'm open.
Pretty open. My schedule's looking pretty clear at
All
this
right.
point. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we'll post something and we'll roll with that. Like I said, make sure you give us a time. Like it, share it. We don't care how many people, but we'll get it done. We'll get it done. Before we head out, we want to again say, go ahead and look up the American Relapse documentary on Hulu. Hulu.
Love to hear what you think about that.
Yep. And then maybe that's something we can talk about if you guys get bored tonight. Watch that. Check it out.
Yep.
It'd be kind of a.
If you don't have Hulu, but you do have Vice, try Dope Sick Nation. I think it's on Vice, and that'll get you in the ballpark of that documentary at least.
Or I'll drop Tim's address in, and you can just stop by. And
I really have nothing going on.
He's got popcorn. He's got everything.
Just bring a mask and some gloves.
Right.
And we're good.
Yep. So, yeah, and with that, we're going to say check out the Medical Warrior podcast. That's an interesting, just kind of rundown of someone who's been through a lot. She tells her story of over 100 surgeries. Definitely interesting. Check it out. And yeah, share us, like us, get it out there.
Yeah, one person. If you can help us carry the message that recovery is possible to one person, whether it's someone who is personally struggling with addiction or knows somebody who is, if you can get one more person connected to this podcast, maybe they'll get another person. You never know. You could be the bridge between life and death for somebody. So please share us out.
Oh, don't watch the Vice one. It just makes your blood boil. Yeah.
No, she said she's kidding.
Now she's kidding, right? Jessica's a jokester.
Stop playing with our emotions, Jessica.
There's not even enough emojis.
You know how fragile I am.
I don't even have enough emojis for all his feelings.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for tuning in, and we will catch you sooner than later.
Yep. Be safe.
And
lick your fingers.
Check out that link. Watch for that link for the Zoom meeting. We'll get it done. Have some fun. Bring the popcorn.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for watching. Take care.